The sports premium announcement was a week ago today, and it's, depending on how you look at it, probably not good news for sports companies like ourselves at Inspired Schools and other sports companies around the country. And I guess it got me thinking less, well, it got me thinking about the sports premium funding, but also about how vulnerable businesses can be if they rely solely on one revenue strand, and how quickly things can shift. And the first thing that came into my head was COVID and similar circumstances in terms of changes that would impact businesses in the sector. Obviously, completely different circumstances in terms of a pandemic versus a funding stream changing. However, the similarities that I can draw are that it forced us to think about who we are, what we do, what we offer. We doubled down with our support for schools, which was changing very quickly under guidance that was changing almost on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis. And if I think back to that time, initially we completely stopped our PE provision into schools. We started delivering lessons online to try and help families move more in their homes or gardens, and try and sort of support in any way that we could. The scenario changed quite quickly, and schools then had key workers, children in, and we were called upon to then start supporting certainly some of our bigger schools initially, when they had probably tens of children that were attending, and then we could send our staff in to support those children and the school actually. So it wasn't always PE delivery that we were doing, it was very much what could we do to help. And sometimes some of our staff couldn't go in because they were vulnerable themselves. Equally, school staff had to, or some of their staff couldn't go in, so we would support in the classroom with staff absences. Holiday camps again were completely stopped, but then as soon as we were able to realise that there was a need for it for parents, that they were able to go back to work if they could, and we had to have really significant and quite stringent risk assessments and ways that we ran camps. So we had to evolve very quickly. We supported not only our schools but our staff as well, and probably experienced our biggest growth period after the pandemic. One, because we had our staff team still together, utilising the furlough system, sometimes sending staff in to schools and kind of rotating them so that they were fresh and not too stressed out or not poorly. And I think we not only maintained our relationship with our schools, but other companies went under during that period of time. They weren't able to support their schools, or chose not to, and then we were kind of well positioned to build new relationships with new schools. And so we adapted what we offered, we helped where we could, and we tried, I guess, to stay useful and provide services that were beneficial to schools during uncertain times. Fast forward to now, significant changes in the sports premium funding, in that it's going and it's moving back towards a system that was sort of previously used pre-2010, the kind of school sports partnership system, which was successful, arguably so. And schools overnight, and some might not even be aware of this because it's still half term when I'm recording this, but schools now will be thinking about that funding, which will no longer exist from September, but certainly from January. So from September to January, there's a transitional funding pot so that schools can ready themselves for the new system. The difficulty, I suppose, that we face and schools face is there's still quite a bit of uncertainty around how that money will be spent. Will it go to school sports partnerships like Somerset Activity Sports Partnership, where we're based, and then they will have funding to disseminate to schools or use within their team to provide services to schools. We just don't know yet. So it's pointless us trying to create new ways of working with schools. But I think the lesson I've drawn from it is that being solely reliant on that funding stream is risky. As a business, we have, I suppose, capitalized on that sports premium by expanding our services, playground markings, but those markings with a purpose, with physical activity benefits and packages and active spaces, so that it's not just playground markings, it's a whole package to help the school get moving more. But 99% of our schools that have bought into playground markings have used the sports premium. Equally, our PE provision that we provide at the moment, again, majority, if not all, is utilising the sports premium. And I think the danger that schools will face is those schools that haven't used it as they should will have shortfalls to fill. If they have used sports premium funding to pay for PPA cover, which we deliver, even though it's not part of the guidance and it shouldn't have been used for that purpose, there will be that shortfall. So there's probably an opportunity there for us to pivot and change our proposition into schools. So always try and think of opportunities where we can pivot or evolve our services, but like I said, we don't necessarily know as much as we need to at the moment. The key thing is that we're going to be there for our schools, try and meet with them all in the final half term, understand their pain points, understand what they're going through, what they're currently thinking, like how are they going to not survive, but what September going to look like for them, and how can we help? Can we provide something that will support them? They will still need PPA cover. Will they be looking in-house for that PPA cover? HLTA is covering PPA and still trying to deliver sport. Will they still want PE provided in PPA times, but will their funding pot be smaller? So is there anything we can do there? I don't know. But there's conversations to be had, understanding schools' needs, wants, pain points, and struggles that they kind of foresee into the future. I actually think the sports premium didn't really work. Initially, there was a buzz around it after London 2012. Schools had a real passion for spending it in the right ways. As it's gone on, more multi-academy trusts and the dilution of that funding going into central finance teams' pots and then not then disseminating it to their schools, and head teachers even not having autonomy over how they can use that funding, it hasn't had the impact that it should have done. Childhood obesity is still on the rise. Social media, devices, children are less active outside of school than they've ever been before, more lonely than they've ever been before, and sport and physical activity is a perfect way to bring people together. Teachers are busier than they've ever been. So how will the new system work? Yes, they've put a focus on facilities and fixtures, and that partnership model used to be really successful in bringing schools together to take part in fixtures and festivals and tournaments. But teachers are busy now, busier, and they haven't necessarily got the time or don't want to give up their time to take their teams to fixtures. So with less funding in the pot, even pre-2010, the pot is smaller. How will it look moving forwards? We just don't know. But coming back to my point, I suppose, is we created services to fit into that sports premium model, and it's been going now for 13 years, longer than that, sorry, 14 years. But we also then moved heavily into holiday camp provision with the Healthy Happy Holiday program, which is funded for free school meal children, benefit related free school meal children. So we diversified how we brought revenue into the business. On a personal level, I started Renew Education 9 months ago ish in alternative provision, and not with the anticipated news breaking of the sports premium going, but I guess it was always on my radar that it probably isn't going to last forever, and there was a need in the market for that alternative provision for children that struggled in mainstream. And so my lesson, I guess, that I've taken is to diversify and not be solely reliant on those funding streams, but also to be resilient, right? And it would have been easy for us during COVID to go, right, we call it a day. I could have gone back into teaching and moved away from business, but we pivoted, we evolved, and resilience is a big part of business, right? And Renew has given me a not a new lease of life, but I really enjoy having a business. It's still in the education sector, but a different kind of offering. And funding streams help, but as I said, to be solely reliant on one is difficult, and sometimes we can't control, or we can't control where that funding is. And so trying to stay ahead of the curve in terms of what's coming, when will a funding cycle end, even like with alternative provision, with the white paper that's come out recently, is that going to impact on Renew? No, I don't think so, because of the way we operate, but just being aware of those things. And so that's my business lesson. In terms of the sports premium going, it probably is a bit of a kick up the bum for the sector, with a huge funding stream that wasn't utilised properly. And it was always going to happen. The bubble was always going to burst where it wasn't working, and schools were taking the mick a little bit with how they're using the funding, and not putting the children first in terms of their thinking, and multi-academy trust getting greedy. And now it's come home to roost a little bit, and we'll see what kind of happens after the next sort of 6 to 12 months with what schools are doing, and how this picture unfolds. So yeah, we are kind of staying abreast of the news, and thinking behind the scenes of what ways we can support schools, but also being led by them, trying to get in to meet with head teachers and just understand what their thinking is moving forwards, and how we can help.